Hi everyone, I'm Jessica Packard, head of marketing here at Timeero, and today I'm joined by Emilio Rodriguez. He is a California employment attorney. We're going to talk about one of the areas employers struggle the most in California, and that's meal and rest breaks. Emilio, thanks for being here. So before we dive in, can you briefly introduce yourself and what type of work you do with California employers?
Absolutely, Jessica. Thank you, first of all, for having me. As you said, my name is Emilio Rodriguez. I'm a California employment a litigator. Right? Most of my work is around the class action and PAGA, which is a California-only law, as well as sexual harassment and single plaintiff. But I do that here in California, up and down the state.
Hmm. Perfect. And so, from what you see in practice, so let's just dive right in. Um, why do meal and rest breaks cause so many issues, even for, when people are generally they're really trying to comply, but why do you see that happening most often?
Yeah, so two things, right? The first thing is meal and rest breaks are so easy to make mistakes, right?
Mhm.
They're not intentional, but the nuances are so specific that an employer could easily just misapply the policy or just some inconsistency, right? So that's the first one. And the second one is that California, like I mentioned, has this law called PAGA, right? Private Attorneys General's Act. And this PAGA law has a lot of violations, right? So the one mistake, right, or that one inconsistency in your meal break or your rest break policy could trigger one of these lawsuits that carry a lot of penalties. And that's why it's so important. And that's why they come up with, so often in California.
Yeah, makes sense. So, in your day to day, so when you review this like time records and you're talking with the clients and review the policies, what's one break related problem you see that come up like most often? What's the issue that you see happening over and over again with companies?
Yeah, super simple. It's consistency,
Mhm.
right? Rarely do we see, and I mean, look, it happens, but it's rare that we see a non-compliant policy, right? The law is the law, and your attorney, or even if you Google it, you can find the specific statement of the law, right? Employees are allowed one 30-minute unpaid meal break for every 5 hours, right? Or major fraction thereof.
Mhm.
So that's easy. And those policies, like I said, rarely will be wrong. Where we do see risks and liability is in the application and the consistency of that policy, right? So, for example, sometimes, depending on what your recording method is, right, and there's several. If you're sometimes we have seen and we will see the old punch card clock, right? When you still use a piece of paper, you walk up to the wall and you punch in or you punch out.
Mhm.
Well, if an employee forgets to do that, right, say one day, then there's going to be an inconsistency there, right? And so that's the thing that we see all the time: consistency in recording, consistency in paying the meal premium or the rest premium if it's needed.
Yeah. So there's often a gap between doing the right thing and being able to prove it. So, can you explain the practical difference between providing a compliant break and actually having the records that
Yeah,
will hold up in court?
yeah, and that's awesome. That's very well said, right? That's something that I tell clients of mine, or whenever I'm doing a speaking engagement, I say it over and over again. Look, that there's a difference between doing the right thing and following the law, right? And then proving that you follow the law. Those are two different things. Employers they don't do things on purpose, right? They don't want to take away the meal break of the employee. But the problem is, again, we come back to having the require or the right record or document to prove and defend yourself if one of these lawsuits does arise, right? So the main practical reason is going to be that documents. Do you have the documents? If um, if an employee took a meal break late, for example, right? If there was something happened and the employee couldn't take their meal break on time, do we have the document to show that a meal premium was paid, right? Or if the employee was allowed to take their meal break, right? And they did in fact take their meal break. Do we have the timesheet? Do we have the software to prove that such employee went on their break or on their meal break at the right time, right? Because
Mhm.
that's very important. It's not only that they took their break, but that they took it at the right time.
The right
So
time.
documents are going to be very, very important.
And when the company they have a missing record or it's very unclear, they don't have all the documentation, how does that usually play out in a claim or dispute? How, they got a PAGA lawsuit and how does that play out? Like they don't have the records, they had, they were trying to do the right thing, but they thought they had the records, enough information, and enough proof, but they don't. So how does that play out in a dispute?
Yeah, well, the first thing that's going to happen is that it's going to make your defense a little bit more costly, right? Because it's going to require more time. And I don't want to look, it's not impossible to defend these lawsuits, right? They happen all the time. I have definitely seen all kinds of records, right? All the way from good records kept by a software
Hmm.
down to a record in a piece of paper that was written, right, just on top of other notes.
Hmm.
And they are normal and it happens. This is a problem. It's going to be how long it takes for your lawyer or the defense to reach a resolution, right? The better the record, the faster it's going to be,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So what happens is this: if we don't have a record at all, or it's not clear or it's not consistent, right? Well, then the plaintiff's attorney is going to be able to make the argument that it is on us, the defendant, to now prove and show
Mhm.
that those meals or those rest breaks indeed happen. And if we don't have a record, the only other way that that could be done is going to be by asking employees, by going through the litigation, right? By doing depositions, by doing discovery, which is just more time and more costly for the defense.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, it usually like how long it takes, like an average, like a
Oh man, well, we
this
get that
whole
question a lot,
ordeal.
right? No, we get that question a lot, and I understand it because people like closure, and you want to know, look, how long am I going to be in this, right? And
Yeah.
it's a hard question to answer because again, it's all going to come back to, well, how do
Right.
your records look, right? Do you have
Hmm.
records or do you not? Because if you have good records, right, if you can get us those records, well, I can tell you that it's going to take maybe, right? If we're lucky, this is going to be gone in half a year, right?
Wow.
Maybe. But if you don't, the if you don't have records, if you're missing records, if your records are not legible, and we have seen those, or if they're just non-existent at all, well, then it will take a considerable amount of time.
Oof.
I know. And look, I wish I had a better answer, right? Every time I get that question, I wish I could look at my client in the eye and say, look, it's exactly going to take this long because that puts them at ease.
Hmm.
But I can't, right? Because it's just so up in the air. And but I can tell you this, what what you can do, what the employer can do to help themselves, right, and help their lawyers is make just look at your records,
Hmm.
right? Even if you're going to audit yourself, right? Even if it's just once a year, look at your records. How are you keeping track, right? Your supervisors that are in charge of these meals and rest breaks, right? Are they well trained? Do
Hmm.
they know the law? Do they know your policies? And not only this, right? Because we go back to a couple questions ago. You have your policy, which is going to be compliant and it's going to say all the right things, but then you may have a supervisor who's not applying that
Sure.
policy correctly,
Hmm.
right? So then you're going to have a gap. You're going to have a disconnect.
Sure.
So audit yourself. Do you have the right policies? Oftentimes it's going to be yes, but do your supervisors, are they well trained
Hmm.
to apply that policy?
Yeah, because you got to make sure the whole system is working, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If anyone falls short of their task, like you're done. Um,
Yes, everything works in like a team, right?
yeah.
Every business is a team, and every team member has a very specific job.
Hmm.
And if everyone is doing that job well, then you can rest assured that you're either not going to get sued, or if you do get sued, then you're going to be out of it rather quickly because of your policies and your training.
Perfect. All right, so I would say those are maybe your key takeaways. What do you say that for someone, if you have to tell them, do this now, like one or two things that are the most important things? And I know we talked about it, but just to wrap things up, what do you say that are the most important one to two things that companies in California should be doing to stay compliant with meal and break laws?
Absolutely. So the first thing is going to be this, right? Know what system you're using, right? Softwares like yours, right? They're very helpful because they take a lot of the work off of the shoulders of the one person, right? The software is going to do most of the tracking, and you can trust on the software to know that it's tracking correctly, right? Because that's the question, that it's tracking correctly. So know what system you're using,
Mhm,
right? And the second one, make sure that your employees or your supervisors are applying your policies correctly.
mhm.
Those two things are going to be lifesavers.
Yeah. And yeah, it kind of go hand in hand with what I had in mind too. It's you have to have the human aspect to
Mhm.
oversee. It cannot just set and forget. You have to make
Absolutely.
sure that you are like in a regular basis. You have your own schedule that you're going to review, those breaks are being taken. You cannot rely 100% that everybody is doing their jobs and the app is doing its job. You still need that human element to oversee, to make sure they're not hit with a PAGA lawsuit because,
Absolutely.
6 months the least, and I don't know how many thousands of dollars. So that is an
Oh my,
expensive and a lengthy process. So.
yes, absolutely. I mean, California courts are swamped with employment lawsuits all the time, right? And as you said, the software is something that is an added tool to help you, but it
Yeah.
should not be just left to the software to do everything, right? You do need that human level of supervision.
Mhm.
And again, you have a good software, a good system, and you have a good supervisor, or you have good employees that follow your policies, you can rest assured that you're going to be okay.
Awesome. Perfect. Emilio, thank you so much. I appreciate for you joining me here. I know it was a very last minute, but I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you. And if you're an employer here, not here because I'm in DC, but if you're an employer in California, we will include a few helpful resources down below, yeah, to help you stay compliant. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you, Jessica.